A very good evening to you. You are watching Prime Time News on News First. As usual, let's take a look at the headlines.
Death of an infant results in tensions at the Galaha Hospital. 5-member committee chaired by the Prime Minister appointed to review delimitation committee report. State Minister of Japan for Foreign Affairs in the island to donate 2 Coast Guard vessels. Tax concessions for imports of horses and export of donkeys.
Before we go on to the stories in detail, a reminder that you can follow the stories that we have today on our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. Taking a look at the stories that were mentioned in the headlines, a clash broke out at the Galaha Hospital in Kandy this afternoon. The police media spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara said the situation has been controlled as of now.
A 1.5-year-old boy had been admitted to the Galaha Hospital in Kandy this morning as a result of an illness. The boy had passed away during his medication. The clash broke out after the relatives charged that proper medication was not administered to the boy by the doctors once the child was admitted to the hospital. Property of the hospital were damaged when the group acted in an unruly manner. Officers of the Gampola, Nawalapitia and Galaha police stations were deployed to control the situation. However, by afternoon the police special task force was also called in.
හරි දැන් ඒ ළමයා නැතිවීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන පොලිස් නියම පරීක්ෂණය මම එක ඉෂ්ට කරනවා. එතන වෛද්‍යවරයාගේ වරදින්න එහෙම නැත්නම් මොකක්ද ඒ සිදුවීම කියන එක සම්බන්ධයෙන් පරීක්ෂණයක් කරන්න වෙනවා. ඒ වගකීම මම ගන්නවා. හරිද? ඔය කලබල කරලා ඉවරලා මේ වැඩේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳ ගන්න බෑ. පොඩක් අහගන්න පොඩක් ඔය. පොඩක් අහගන්නකෝ. අහගන්න. පොඩක් අහගන්න. දැන් මේ ළමයා නැතු වෙලා ඉවරයි. දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝ අනවශ්‍ය සිදුවීම් මෙතන ඇති කරලා දැන් මේ ළමයාගේ පණ ගන්න බෑනේ අපිට. ඊට පස්සේ පෑ 3ක් වගේ ගියේ. ඒ වගකීම මම ගන්නවා. ඔයාලා කලබල වෙන්න එපා. අපිට දීලා දොස්තර බාර දෙන්න අපිට. දොස්තර බාර දෙන්න.
The Director of Health Services of the Central Province, Dr. Shanti Samarasinghe, has said that the child was suffering with high fever when he was admitted to the hospital. She added that while the doctor was treating the child, 2 accident victims were brought to the hospital with serious injuries. After concluding the preliminary treatments, the doctor had departed to treat the accident victims. At this time, the child had passed away. The Director of Health Services noted that an investigation has been launched into the incident. Are these incidents a red flag to the Government Medical Officers Association? Isn't it the duty of responsible professionals to ensure that the people are not harmed in any way? You, who are paid with taxpayers' money, are bound to serve the people.
The agitation of the people can be clearly seen in the visuals that we just saw. The police officer as well as the Director of Health Services promised to hold an investigation as to what has taken place. News First will keep a close watch on what is happening. Moving on to more local news, the Mineria National Park was reopened this afternoon following its temporary closure after an attack against the wildlife officers today. It was opened after safari operators started a protest at the entrance.
The incident started on Sunday when 2 men were arrested while fishing at the Mineria Reservoir, part of which falls within the Mineria National Park. On that night, a few people had attacked wildlife officers at their office and had managed to free the arrested man. Following the attack, 4 officers attached to the national park had been admitted to the hospital. As a result of the attack, wildlife officers of the Polonnaruwa division showed their dissent by boycotting field activities and tourist services. Earlier this morning, around 11 safari jeep drivers who could not take tourists commenced a protest at the park entrance.
අපි රටේ ඉන්න අධ්‍යක්ෂ ජනරල්ට මේකේ නැමතිලාට ඒගොල්ලන්ට අපි කියන්න ඕනේ මේක මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ කරලා අද අපිට මේක ඇරලා දෙන්න එච්චරයි. වාහන 300ක් දවසට දුවනවා. මේ මෙතන මේක වහගන්න.
ඒකට මේ දවස් ටිකේ තමයි සර් කීයක් හරි අපි හොයාගන්න. අපි ඒක පැහැදිලි කරලා දුන්නා. එයාලා කියන ඒක අදාළ නෑලු අපිට. ඒක අදාළ නෑ. අපිට මේක අපි නෙමනවා.
දැන් කවුරු ජාති කරන දෙයක්
තමයි.
However, police managed to neutralize the protest after having promised the protesters the solution to the problem. After discussions, the police took steps to reopen the Mineria National Park at around 3 p.m.
The Japanese State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Kazuyuki Nakane, is to arrive in Sri Lanka today and will be here till the 30th of August in order to participate in the commissioning ceremony of the patrol vessels donated from Japan to Sri Lanka under the grant aid of the Government of Japan, to be held tomorrow at the Colombo port. This is the second time a high-ranking official of the Japanese government arrived in Sri Lanka in the span of a week.
In addition, during his stay, Minister Nakane will call on Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and hold meetings with other Sri Lankan government leaders to further promote bilateral relationships between the two countries. The Japanese embassy in Sri Lanka says it expects that this visit would help further consolidate the comprehensive partnership between Japan and Sri Lanka. The two patrol vessels will be handed over to Sri Lanka Coast Guard to improve maritime safety and strengthen control of the maritime borders of the island. The vessels will be used mainly for search and rescue, pollution control and oil spill management, as well as maritime security boarding operations. The vessels were built in Japan under the grant aid of the government of Japan and cost over $11 million in total. International media reported Japanese maritime security expert Satoru Nagao saying there is a Japanese-Sri Lankan project for maritime safety capability improvement worth approximately 1.8 billion yen or $16.5 million, which includes the provision of 2 patrol vessels for the Sri Lankan Coast Guard. International media adds that the first ever visit of the Japanese Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera to Sri Lanka earlier this week was of great significance to the Indian Ocean region. A Japanese naval destroyer was in the Trincomalee harbour when the Japanese Defence Minister Onodera was visiting it. Close on the heels of the visit of the Japanese Defence Minister to Trincomalee, the U.S. amphibious transport dock USS Anchorage, along with the 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, arrived there for a scheduled port visit on the 24th of August. In his report to the Pathfinder Foundation, former Sri Lankan Navy Chief Admiral Columbage says, analysing the country of origin of foreign warships visiting the port of Colombo from 2008 to 2017, it is observed that 65 Japanese Maritime Self-Defence Force ships had arrived in Sri Lankan ports, mainly the port of Colombo. India's BJP leader, Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, on his arrival to Sri Lanka last week, speaking to the Veerakesari newspaper, had spoken about the importance of countries like India having the opportunity of carrying out commercial activities in a similar manner to China. Why is there increased international attention towards strategic locations of our country?
China is heavily investing in ports and port cities along the maritime Silk Route especially. So you see development in Singapore, you see development mainly in Kai Ruk Phu in Burma, then you can see developments in Sri Lanka, Hambantota and Port City, and then all the way up towards Godda in Pakistan. And there is connectivity that China is looking at even through in Middle East, in the Emirate like Dubai. So what you see in the Indian Ocean is a clear strategic concern which is rising from China's One Belt, One Road. So what you see clearly is a 3 to 4 to 5 way contestation between the US, India, Japan, Australia to have a major stake in the geopolitical future of the Indian Ocean, especially in the light that China is expanding heavily in the region. So as a country, Sri Lanka is facing significant challenges in balancing this intense geopolitical rivalry. And you can see that in Sri Lanka in the last few years, you see so much of interest on our country, but not just from India or China, but from the US. And very recently, you saw a couple of major high-level visits by key Japanese statesmen in Sri Lanka. In the next 5 to 10 years, Sri Lanka will have to weather a major geopolitical storm.
Are these foreign interventions a result of weaknesses in our own government?
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe addressed the Indian Ocean Conference held in Hanoi, Vietnam.
The Indian Ocean region is set to define the destiny of the planet in the 21st century. At the center of this geopolitical turn of events is the Indian Ocean, an ocean which is increasingly being defined as the ocean of the future. In regional constructs that go beyond economic interest and spill over to political, defense, security and strategic domains. Here too, regional constructs have tended to steer clear from directly engaging and grappling with these issues, focusing instead on improving trade, connectivity, people-to-people contacts and social and cultural ties. There is renewed acknowledgement of the intrinsic linkage between economic prosperity, security and stability. Another aspect of this
Minister and the Foreign Affairs Minister of Vietnam. Attention had been drawn towards further strengthening the traditional ties between Sri Lanka and Vietnam and to also strengthen the Following the event, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had called on the Indian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sushma Swaraj. The Indian Foreign Minister had said that India offers its continuous support to Sri Lanka for housing, port and airport sector developments, political and economic cooperation between the two nations. The Prime Minister had also met with Singaporean Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan. The duo had spoken about the new international political and economic developments.
President Maithripala Sirisena will lead the Sri Lanka delegation to the 4th summit of the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation, or BIMSTEC, in Nepal.
The summit is being held in Kathmandu, Nepal. The presidents of Sri Lanka and Myanmar, the prime ministers of India, Bangladesh, Nepal and Thailand, and the chief advisor of the government of Bhutan will be leading their respective delegations to the summit. The president will also meet with the prime minister and president of Indonesia on the sidelines of the summit. President Sirisena will also engage in a tour of Lumbini.
There are many who do not even have basic infrastructure facilities and have been neglected by society as a whole. Today, Newsfirst came across a group of children who are still forced to sleep on mats and live inside makeshift huts.
Come at the door-to-door initiative. The Gum at the door-to-door team came across this group of people in the Paledi Thona village in the Kirana Divisional Secretariat in Batiklo. Around 15 families who were battered by the conflict continue to live in such a state for many years. The children from these families go through a very bitter lifestyle. Speaking to the Gum at the door-to-door team, these villagers claimed they have no access to clean drinking water, electricity and even basic sanitation. Another Gum at the door-to-door team visited the villages of Uthur, Puchankani and Kadirivali, located in the Vakarai Divisional Secretariat in the Batiklo district. The locals here face serious issues due to the threat of wild elephants and lack of access to clean drinking water. Another Gum at the door-to-door team made their way to the rural villages of Upper Pulliyankulama, Lower Pulliyankulama, Neelabamma, Mahahelyaya and Veerapura in the Putlam district. In order to have clean drinking water, these people have been forced to buy drinking water. Locals say slit has been collecting in the Neelabamma canal over a period of time, and these waters are released for agrarian purposes. The people living in the Sevantivu village in Putlam for many years have been facing a severe crisis in having access to clean drinking water. They live in small makeshift huts and revealed their hardships to the Gum at the door-to-door team. Another serious issue they face is the dilapidated 7-kilometer stretch of road from Manathivu to Sevantivu. The people from the Smile Foam village speaking to our team said they have been compelled to purchase drinking water to address the water crisis in the area. Another Gum at the door-to-door team visited the Karanugala and Bulupitia villages as well as the Ratugala indigenous community village in Bibila. They claim wild elephants roaming in their village at around 3 in the evening have made matters difficult for them. The Gum at the door-to-door campaign, carried out in partnership with the University of Peradeniya, will see teams walk the length and breadth of Sri Lanka, documenting the problems and challenges faced by the people living in rural Sri Lanka. Gum at the door-to-door initiative.
Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya appointed a 5-member committee chaired by the Prime Minister to review the Provincial Council's delimitation report. RML Ratnayaka, Periyasamy Muttulingam, Professor Balasundaram Pillai and Dr. A.S.M. Naufal are the members of the committee appointed by the Speaker. The office of the Speaker announced that the committee was appointed as per the powers of the Provincial Council's Elections Amendment Act. This is a committee purely for political needs. It has no independence. They are trying to continue this delimitation process according to the whims of Sirikota.
තෙම මේක නාටක අපි තරහයි නාට්‍ය රංගපෑවා පුංචිතා ඡන්ද වේදිකාවේ ඡන්ද ඉවරුණා විතරයි අඹයාලු නාට්‍ය පටන් ගත්තා. මේකත්
This is a drama performed to postpone the elections. Who would like to hold an election that would end in a defeat for them?
මේ දෙක පටලවා ගන්න එපා.
Do not get confused between the two. It's one thing to conduct the election under the new system. It's another thing to conduct the election fast. We can conduct the elections under any system, but it will take some time to conduct the election under the new system. The joint opposition likes to conduct the election under the preferential voting system. We as United National Front also like the old system. If we all unite, we will not just have a 2/3 majority, but a unanimous decision. The All Island Canteen Owners Association lodged a complaint at the Bribery Commission today requesting for an investigation into the money spent by the government to compile the Delimitation Committee report. It was revealed by the media yesterday that 21.2 million rupees of public funds were spent for the compilation of the Delimitation report. This is we tell the joint opposition, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the UNP. What you did was find a way to postpone the elections through the back door. Former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena, delivering the 68th anniversary oration, said the Central Bank needs to take serious note of the financial irregularities within the bank and take immediate action to restore trust.
It's very important that the central bank should and the monetary board should take a very serious note of the financial irregularities that might occur inside the central banks. The central bank governor of Latvia was arrested for accepting a bribe. Governor of the Central Bank of Afghanistan had to flee the country because he had got a bribe from one of the banks. And also the governor of the Magna Carta Malaysia has to step down because he was accused of working with the previous administration in Malaysia in supporting the money laundering exercise. And even in our case, there are reports that the former governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, when he was asked to appear before the CID to give a statement, he has absconded. Now these things are very serious matters for the reputation of a central bank, and when the reputation is at a very low level, the threat is that when other people like politicians who intervene in the independence of central bank is unable to get the support of the civil society.
Delivering the introductory remarks, Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy said that the EPF, the Employees Provident Fund, is set to enter the stock market.
A lot of work has been done in terms of improving processes and procedures. The investment committee now meets on a daily basis. New investment guidelines, investment and trading guidelines have been developed. CCTV cameras and voice recording have been put in place. The segregation between the front, middle and back office has been made more entrenched. And we are working towards, and I think recently the EPF started operating in the secondary market in government securities, and we are working towards the EPF coming back into the stock market fairly soon once all the preparatory work is completed.
The EPF, managed by the central bank, moved out of the secondary market following the controversial bond scam during the 2015 to 2016 period. Dealers of the EPF were found to be colluding with primary dealer Perpetual Treasuries that were engaged in pump and dump scams. Dr. Kumaraswamy revealed that there are 6 forensic audits into areas under the purview of the CBSL, including the 2015 controversial bond transactions.
One of it.
Last night, Newsfirst reported on the red flags being raised by international rating agencies, including the likes of Moody's. We reported that at least rupees 47,400 million was the net outflow by foreign investors in the country. The stark reality and the impact of what a whole host of policy decisions and unwanted expenditure does to an economy is brought home clearly by studying the performance of major corporates in Sri Lanka. In January 2015, the US dollar Sri Lanka rupee exchange rate was approximately 132. Newsfirst examined how three key players in our economy have been affected. We chose them from across the commercial spectrum, from finance to conglomerates. We chose not to identify them. Company A, a large listed corporate, traded at rupees 248 in January 2015. With an exchange rate at 132 in dollar terms, that amounted to $1.88 per share. By August 2018, the share was trading at 139, and the dollar had reached a spectacular and never before seen 162 rupees to the dollar. This meant that in dollar terms, that share was worth just 85 US cents. Company B, a company in the finance industry, traded at 195, and by August 2018 reached 221. In dollar terms, the price that was $1.48 had dropped to $1.36. And Company C, another company in the finance industry, traded at 174 rupees in 2015, and by August 2018 had plummeted to rupees 121.90. In dollar terms, the share had moved from $1.33 a share to US dollars 75 cents. The impact of a sliding exchange rate seemingly out of control has impacted the capital markets, and foreign investments especially cannot be more stark. Although rising US Treasury rates have almost always impacted on emerging markets and results in an outflow of funds, these factors are mitigated by stable policies and established rule of law, the settled economy, and plenty of opportunities for commercial investors. In a lopsided attempt to jumpstart the staid stock exchange performance, the government are now readying themselves to gamble, in effect, the people's hard-earned retirement fund. Engaging in the secondary market by the EPF will only result in further disasters in the style and manner of the bond scam fraud involving perpetual treasuries and others. Serious questions arise as to the credibility of the central bank now. The central bank's credibility was at an all-time low thanks to the fugitive former central bank governor Arjuna Mahendran, and the appointment of the new governor Dr. Kumaraswamy was welcomed by all. However, that credibility is now under question, especially taking into account the central bank's stance on the 10 billion rupee facility granted to the CML Walkers Group. With this precedent, how can people have faith in the central bank?
Speaking on the Newsline program, General Secretary of the UNFF, Attorney at Law Maitri Gunaratne expressed the following views.
The TNA is the opposition in this country today. Yeah. The main opposition leader of this country is the TNA. And what do? They are the main people who helped the bond scam, who helped the Prime Minister to be in power. Are they playing their role properly? Is the opposition of this country, the TNA, playing its role to the best interest of the country? No. They are doing it only, they are all horse deals. They must have accepted money. That is why the TNA supported the bond scam. Sambandhan, Honorable Mr. Sambandhan, being an attorney, senior attorney at law, if he could not see that this was an absolute robbery, daylight robbery, I mean, what more than that does anyone want?
And let's not forget that Mr. Sambandhan wanted, because he also automatically sort of developed a lack of English, he wanted the Tamil translation and therefore held up the proceedings on the debate on that bond. Do you remember that? Yeah. Do you remember that?
Oh, this is a
why isn't he asking that about the delimitation thing then? Yeah. Why isn't he doing that?
It all goes to show for us that these people are 100%, either they are corrupt or they are intellectually dishonest.
Still in local news, the funeral of late Army Commander retired General Rohan Daluwatta will take place tomorrow. Retired General Rohan Daluwatta passed away at the Sri Lanka Army Hospital in Colombo while receiving treatment. A large crowd arrived to pay their last respects today as well. He joined the Sri Lanka Army as a cadet officer in 1961 and served until 1998 and received military training at the Royal Military Academy. As a commander of the army, he led the Rivirasa operation against the LTTE to recapture the Jaffna town. Following retirement from service, late General Daluwatta served as a Sri Lankan ambassador to Brazil. He also held positions in a number of public institutions, and the funeral will take place on Wednesday at the Borella Public Cemetery with full military honours. As mentioned in our headlines, the Ministry of Development Strategies and International Trade has confirmed that waste and garbage from other countries will not be permitted to enter Sri Lanka via the Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement. However, professionals against the agreement point out that the subject minister and those who drafted this agreement have misled the general public. Here's another revelation surrounding the Sri Lanka-Singapore FTA.
Director General of the Commerce Department, Gomi Senadegwa, speaking on the Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, said waste from other countries, including clinical waste, can be brought to the country with no obstacles via this free trade agreement. The matter was also highlighted in the island newspaper. The ministry, which based its statement on the newspaper article, says though there is mention of waste management, there is no attempt to bring waste from overseas.
They say their intentions were not to import foreign garbage, but they allow it, they list it for duty-free imports. They say that is very similar to Sri Lanka-India Free Trade Agreement, but I urge them to look at India-Singapore Free Trade and look what they have done there. They also say, though under services chapter, Singapore could establish facilities here to collect, treat and dispose the waste material limited to Sri Lankan waste, what is collection of Sri Lankan waste and processing. Nowhere in the agreement they say it is limited to Sri Lankan garbage, waste produced in Sri Lanka. If their intentions are different, those intentions should have been reflected in the agreement. It's very easy.
On a lighter note, before we go, Newsfirst reported yesterday that a pipeline near Flower Road in Colombo had ruptured and that water had been leaking from it over 4 months. It was reported today that the pipeline, which was seen within close proximity to the Prime Minister's office, had been repaired by evening. That's all the news we have for you this evening. Thank you for watching. I've been Chaturanga Hapuarachi. Have a good night.